Welcome to HFY Sci-Fi Stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. A bone-chilling cold, unlike any he'd known, seized Captain Cade, freezing his very blood as sirens tore through his awareness, yanking him from oblivion. His eyes snapped open, blurred by frost on his cryopod's canopy, a crimson display flashing urgent warnings. Encased in ice, the stark message read, "System error. Time elapsed. 312 years, 4 months, 17 days. 300 years. The number reverberated, a deafening echo of lost time, of everyone he'd ever known turned to dust. Elena. Her name surged, a fresh wound. His last memory. Her voice on the comms. "Cade, they've locked on. I can't shake them." The Valiant, her ship, torn apart by the ghost stealth fighter, ending in static and a piece of his soul. He clenched his fists, knuckles white, consumed by a rage that 3 centuries hadn't dulled, but sharpened into a diamond-edged pain. "I'm coming for you," he rasped, his voice alien after disuse. "This time, I finish what we started." Yet beneath the thirst for vengeance, duty called. Captain Aaron Cade, Special Operations, 3rd Fleet. A soldier's oath, etched into his being, didn't expire. Admiral Thornton's absolute final order: find and eliminate the operative codenamed Ghost at any cost. This mission, his purpose, transcended time. Cade's training surfaced, banishing despair. He punched the ice on the glass. It shattered like broken dreams. Beyond lay the Avenger, his fighter, a wreckage now. Systems flickered, consoles dark, but it, like him, had endured. He was on Kerber 7, the graveyard planet, the silent resting place of war's machines. His squadron had hunted the Ghost, an elusive Xeon assassin, the last echo of the Great War. Then, the cold sleep. Muscles screaming, he climbed from the pod, movements clumsy as a newborn's. His uniform, once crisp, hung in tatters, the hull breached, letting in the planet's thin, metallic air. He stumbled to the fractured viewport. A metallic hell stretched before him, the mangled husks of countless ships, human and Xeon, frozen beneath a dim star. War's behemoths lay broken, their skeletal frames clawing at a colorless sky. Smaller tragedies lay scattered. A fighter, pilots remained still gripping the controls in a final defiant act. A transport, split open, spilling its contents. A dust-covered child's toy, a poignant testament to interrupted lives. Each wreck, a story untold. His directive burned: find and destroy the Ghost. Now, vengeance fueled his duty. For Elena, for himself, for all lost in his sleep. He checked his sidearm, retrieved his rifle. "Duty and vengeance," he murmured, the words aligning perfectly. "Let's finish this." This derelict starship graveyard, Kerber 7, a colossal tomb of rust and shadow stretching endlessly, was the perfect hiding place. Twisted metal formed a chaotic maze of collapsed corridors and exposed innards. Cade's methodical hunt began. Duty was his unwavering compass, the mission's parameters etched deep within. His outdated tactical visor, though primitive, still scanned for life signs. Days blurred into a silence broken only by dust. Then, a clue. A hacked terminal on an ancient cruiser, its Xeon code elegant, almost musical, deliberately placed. A holographic chess problem flickered to life. An academy exercise, separating tacticians from cannon fodder. A trap, he realized. A test. The Ghost was verifying him. This wasn't mere pursuit. It was a profound evaluation. Doubt gnawed at him. His orders: eliminate the enemy. But enemies didn't pose puzzles, didn't test identities, didn't play games. They killed. Duty first, he reminded himself, solving the puzzle with practiced precision. Coordinates appeared, a breadcrumb trail leading to more challenges. Complex encryptions only an intelligence officer would understand. Power routing problems needing pre-war starship knowledge. A tactical simulation of the Battle of Arnhem Proxima Centauri, where Cade himself commanded. She wasn't fleeing, she was scrutinizing him, navigating his past. "You want me to find you?" he echoed in the derelict engine room. "But only if you know it's really me." Each puzzle deepened the internal conflict. His orders screamed for elimination, yet his instincts screamed foul play. The Ghost acted like an ally, and a voice, disturbingly familiar, whispered, "What if duty and honor clash?" The final puzzle, the Leviathan's command bridge, a city-sized warship, now a broken monument. He solved the last encryption. A soft movement behind him. He spun, rifle raised, finding her bathed in starlight through a shattered viewport. She hadn't been cornered. She'd awaited him. "You passed, Captain," a melodious voice from her helmet. "You are who I hoped." His rifle remained trained. 300 years of discipline roared to fulfill his mission. Elena's last cry echoed, yet something restrained him. "Game over, Ghost," he said, adrenaline surging, his voice firm. "You've hunted your last." With fluid grace, she turned. Two eyes, twin stars in her helmet's slit, regarded him. Predator and prey, the roles unclear. Their clash was explosive. Her Xeon blade sang, sparks flying as his combat knife met it. Years of combat training, every reflex, every instinct unleashed in the dance of life and death. His rigorous training compelled him to end this menace. This was the foe, the phantom that had plagued the human fleet's deepest fears. His mission, his solemn oath as a soldier, demanded this. They engaged in a deadly ballet amidst the remnants of a vanished conflict. She moved with impossible speed, yet Cade possessed the advantage of experience. He'd battled her kind before, familiar with their tactics and vulnerabilities. For every assault she launched, he countered, his resolve unshaken by her feints. A precise kick sent her weapon clattering into the gloom. Before she could regain her footing, he tackled her, the sudden collision stealing their breath. They wrestled on the frigid metal deck, a desperate tangle of limbs. With a final surge of power, Cade subdued her, his blade at her throat. "It's time," he rasped, his free hand reaching for her helmet's clasps. "Time to unmask our adversary, to witness the entity that has long evaded the human fleet. Time to fulfill my mission." Then, his reality shattered. She offered no resistance. Instead, her gloved hands darted to a wrist panel. Her tactical display illuminated his own helmet's visor, revealing his vital signs, pulse, blood pressure, oxygen levels, tracked with a precision that rendered military systems obsolete. But the data went further. A single line froze his blood. DNA compatibility, 99.8%. Below it, an unknown designation, Protocol Guardian. "Your cryosleep was unstable, Captain." Her calm, melodic voice resonated within his helmet, sending an inexplicable shiver through him. "I have been remotely maintaining it for the past 312 years. Cade stood frozen, his mind reeling. The knife at her throat faltered and dropped. She hadn't merely monitored him. She was genetically intertwined with his survival. His once certain duty dissolved into confusion. Had she wished him dead, he would have perished ages ago. In that very instant, the Leviathan's dormant systems roared to life. Centuries-old lights flickered on, and external turrets, turning with uncanny precision, unleashed barrages at unseen orbital targets. "Protocol Purge activated," his display read, the message both chilling and unexpected. "They're here," she stated, her voice now tinged with an emotion Cade finally perceived. Fear. "And they've come for you." Duty, in that moment, felt like a hollow echo. What was a soldier's oath against such a revelation? What was a centuries-old mission compared to the truth that this supposed enemy had sustained his life for reasons yet unknown? They sought refuge in the Leviathan's depths, a maintenance bay sealed against the void when the ship had been ravaged. Emergency lights cast an ethereal blue glow, transforming shadows into potential threats within the confined space. "Who is here?" Cade demanded, his weapon aimed as she moved with practiced efficiency, activating systems and scanning a portable terminal. His soldier's instincts remained, even as his sense of duty wavered. "What is Protocol Purge?" She paused, her back to him, then deliberately raised her hands to her helmet. The hiss of pressure seals broke the silence as she removed it. Cade found himself gazing at the back of her head, not at scales or chitin, but at a river of silver-white hair cascading past her shoulders. As she turned to face him, Cade gasped. He had anticipated the face of a warrior, hardened and scarred, an enemy he could despise. Instead, beneath the helmet was the visage of a young woman, breathtakingly beautiful by any standard. Her skin was a soft azure, like a clear summer sky. Her large, expressive eyes, a deeper shade of the same hue, were framed by delicate silver markings tracing her features. Yet it wasn't her beauty that resonated most profoundly. It was the deep weariness etched into her youthful countenance. Her eyes held the weight of centuries, of isolation, of an immense, enduring burden. She was no monster, but a prisoner bound to her mission for 300 years. In that instant, his training, his sense of duty, his thirst for vengeance felt utterly meaningless. How could he pursue his mission against someone who had kept him alive for centuries? How could he harbor hatred for this being who looked upon him not with animosity, but with hope? "My name is Serafina," she said, her voice even more melodious without the helmet's interference. "And they are the ones who want us both dead." She activated her terminal, projecting a holographic display between them. Cade saw glimpses of his past, missions he had barely survived. A millimeter from his head, a sniper's shot had been deflected, an ambush thwarted by what he'd believed was a random blast, a retreat covered by what was reported as a meteor shower. Behind his every miracle, she was there, a shadow orchestrating events from afar. Her fleet of phantom ships, controlled through her neural interface, had been his invisible shield. "I don't understand," Cade confessed, lowering his weapon as confusion eclipsed his duty. "You are the ghost, the enemy. Why would you shield me?" Serafina's expression hardened. "My people, the Xeon, weren't destroyed by you," she explained, her fingers dancing across the terminal, revealing more images. "They were annihilated by those who secretly armed both sides, Omnicorp. They engineered a virus that killed us, then blamed it on me, on the ghosts, to conceal their treachery." Cade listened as his world dissolved. The Great War, the conflict that had defined his existence, was a fabrication bullshit of corporate avarice. Millions of lives, human and Xeon, sacrificed for profit. His duty, his oath, his entire career, built on a lie. "You were on a ship that scanned our world the day it fell," she continued, her voice strained with contained emotion. "I hoped your ship's logs, your memory, held the proof. That's why I protected you. You were my last hope." Her words descended upon Cade like a shroud. In her eyes, he saw not an enemy, but a reflection of his own loss. She had lost her world. He had lost his time, both victims of the same deception. "And now?" he finally managed, his voice barely a whisper. The question held more than immediate survival. It probed his future. What was a soldier without a mission? What was duty built on falsehoods? "Now," she replied, closing the display with a sweep of her hand. "We survive. And perhaps, if fortune favors us, we find justice. Justice, not vengeance, not duty, but something higher." For the first time since waking in this strange future, Cade felt a new purpose stir, a warmth replacing the cold comfort of duty. The honor of doing what was right, not just what was commanded. They needed to launch one of her phantom ships to survive and fight back, vessels sleek and almost invisible, hidden amongst the wreckage scattered throughout the graveyard. For days, they toiled side by side, their partnership a stark contrast of styles. Cade approached challenges with military precision and directness, ingrained habits of a career soldier. Serafina relied on subtlety and technology, the methods of one who had survived by remaining unseen. "We must breach this barrier," Cade declared, indicating a collapsed corridor blocking access to a crucial power coupling. He hefted a plasma cutter. "Cut straight through. Establish a perimeter. Secure the objective. Standard breach protocol." Serafina shook her head. "Force is futile here. The structure is compromised. You'll bring the entire section down. We haven't time for caution." The soldier in him demanded efficiency over safety, duty urging the most direct path. She remained silent, activating a small, spider-like drone from her armor. The mechanical arachnid scuttled through a narrow gap, vanishing. Moments later, the emergency systems on the other side disengaged, and a hidden maintenance door slid open. "Sometimes," she said softly, stepping through, "intelligence triumphs over strength." Cade offered no reply, but his silence acknowledged her point. This was the conflict he now faced, the rigid certainty of military protocol against the adaptability this new reality demanded. The soldier he had been trained to be versus the survivor he needed to become. This became their rhythm. Disagreement, tension, and grudging respect when one approach proved superior. Slowly, they began to learn from each other. The rigid soldier embraced flexibility. The lone survivor learned to trust. The phantom ship they chose, damaged but repairable, was a hybrid of technologies mirroring their unlikely alliance. He shared his knowledge of human engineering workarounds. She revealed the elegant efficiency of Xeon systems. When a section of the hull unexpectedly collapsed during repairs, it was Cade's quick reflexes and strength that pulled Serafina to safety. Days later, as they triggered an ancient defense system, Her technological expertise deactivated it seconds before it could incinerate them both. Searching for a necessary component, they discovered the wreckage of his old squadron's transport. Inside, amidst the debris. Amidst the wreckage, Cade discovered his friend's dog tag, Lieutenant Marcus Chen. The tarnished metal bore his serial number, blood type, and faith. "I ordered that attack," Cade confessed, his voice hollow, gazing at the tag. "I sent them to their deaths, believing the lies." The burden of duty crushed him. His obedience had resulted in a graveyard of ships and lost souls, all sacrificed for a falsehood. Serafina, her expression softening, approached from the doorway, her hand emerging from her armor's hidden pocket. She held a twisted piece of metal, a fragment of a human escape pod. "Sergeant Rivera's," she whispered, "from your squadron." Her Phantom had intercepted the missile, but the pod's trajectory was irrevocably compromised. She'd tracked it, but arrived too late. "He was the only one I almost saved," she murmured, her eyes clouded with sorrow. "I tried, Cade, for all of them." Cade examined the fragment, then looked at her. "You were at Helios Ridge?" She nodded. "Many battles, always trying to lessen the casualties, on both sides." "Why?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. It wasn't mere curiosity. It was a quest to comprehend an honor he'd never considered, one transcending conflict's lines. "Because even in war, life matters," she replied, "even when your enemy thinks you're a monster." In her words, Cade heard a principle he'd once cherished, before duty narrowed his focus to missions and enemy targets. A soldier's highest calling, protecting life, not blindly following orders. Amongst the ghosts of the past, their enmity ceased. They were survivors, united by shared trauma, and a common foe becoming partners in a new mission, driven not by duty or revenge, but by justice. The Phantom ship, the Redemption, stood ready. As they prepared, Cade experienced flashes of memory. The Kerber 7 briefing, the commanding officer's shadowed face, the Omnicorp logo, the oddly specific orders. Obtain proof of the ghost's existence, yet eliminate all other evidence. The contradiction had haunted him then, but duty silenced his doubts. Now, hindsight revealed the manipulation. "Something's wrong," he murmured, adjusting the navigation. "The mission, it never made sense." Serafina looked up. "What do you mean?" "My orders were contradictory," he explained. "Eliminate the ghost, but bring back proof. If we killed you, your body would be the proof. But we were ordered to destroy all other evidence. They weren't eliminating an enemy. They were eliminating evidence." Before she could reply, an approaching vessel was detected, an Omnigov warship. "The Leviathan's launch bay," Serafina urged. "It's our only way out." But as they activated the Redemption's engines, the Leviathan's systems betrayed them. Doors remained sealed. The blue operational lights turned to angry red. "It's a trap," Cade realized. A holographic projection materialized. Commander Vorlog, a ruthlessly efficient officer Cade had twice blocked from promotion. "Captain Cade," Vorlog sneered, "how delightful. You haven't aged a day." His smile was predatory. "How kind of you to deliver yourself and the ghost." "You were the one who woke me," Cade stated, the truth finally snapping into place. This wasn't about concluding the war. It was about burying it. "Astute observation, Captain," Vorlog conceded, a flicker of admiration in his voice, tempered by disdain for Cade's rigid morality. "Did you truly believe your awakening was mere chance? We activated your pod, knowing the ghost would seek you. You were the perfect lure." In that revelation, Cade's perception of duty shattered and reformed. True service wasn't blind adherence to authority or a corrupt establishment. It was a fierce devotion to justice, to truth, to safeguarding the defenseless, even if it meant dismantling everything he once held sacred. A frantic flight through the derelict fleet commenced. Their hope of redemption, too fragile in its launch cradle, was abandoned as they scrambled on foot. Behind them, Vorlog's soldiers, an anonymous wave in gleaming armor, pursued with unnerving precision. Serafina, her hacking skills honed, seized control of the Leviathan's dormant systems, turning its ancient defenses against their hunters. Automated turrets, silent for centuries, roared to life at her command. Bulkheads slammed shut, entombing legions of soldiers in corridors destined to become their graves. They broke free of the Leviathan, but their options dwindled. The ship graveyard, once their sanctuary, had transformed into a charnel house. Their only hope for concealment and repair lay within the flagship of the old human navy, the Nemesis, a vessel from Cade's distant past. "The Nemesis," Cade whispered, a blend of awe and grim resolve in his tone. "If we can reach it, we might stand a chance." The Nemesis emerged from the haze, a colossal relic of a bygone era. Unlike the other hulks littering the graveyard, it retained a striking integrity, a testament to its creator's skill. As they drew closer, Cade's memories surged. He'd walked these decks, saluted on this bridge, fought and bled for this very ship. "I know every circuit within her," Cade murmured, his gaze sweeping over the imposing structure. "I served as both tactical and engineering liaison. If there's any place we can make a stand, it's here." They infiltrated through a maintenance hatch, the familiar layout guiding Cade's steps despite the passage of 3 centuries. The ship was a tomb, its power systems long extinguished, but Serafina's tactical visor provided their sole illumination. On the bridge, surrounded by holographic echoes frozen in time, phantom officers and spectral battles, Vorlog found them. His image materialized on the main screen, larger than life, radiating malevolence. "Captain Cade," his voice boomed, dripping with triumph. "I've longed for this moment. Your unwavering righteousness was always an impediment, hindering my advancement, questioning my methods. And now, you stand allied with the enemy." A chilling realization washed over Cade. His awakening, his pursuit of the ghost, all meticulously orchestrated by Vorlog and his unseen masters. "Why?" Cade demanded, his voice raw. "What could you possibly desire after all this time?" Vorlog's smile was a sliver of cruelty. "The war never ceased, Captain. It merely went underground. Omnicorp became Omnigov. We've hunted the last of the Zen for centuries, and now, thanks to you, we have her." He gave the order, and the sound of plasma cutters breaching the Nemesis's hull sounded like the lament of lost souls. The defense of the Nemesis was a desperate gamble. Cade didn't just utilize his knowledge of the ship's layout, he weaponized his intimate understanding of its very design. This wasn't merely a former assignment. It was a vessel he'd helped maintain, whose every flaw and quirk he knew intimately. "They're breaching through the port maintenance shafts," Cade reported, his eyes fixed on a flickering tactical display. "Precisely as I would have anticipated." "We can't repel that many troops," Serafina replied, her voice laced with concern. A faint smile touched Cade's lips. "We don't need to fight them. We simply let the ship fight for us." His fingers flew across the ancient consoles with an almost preternatural speed. "During my tenure on the Nemesis, I documented 17 critical design flaws that were never rectified. Admiralty deemed the fixes too costly during the war." He accessed an engineering junction, his hands a blur as he manipulated a control panel. "The Nemesis possesses a fundamental vulnerability in its coolant system," he explained, his focus absolute. "The primary and secondary conduits run parallel for nearly 30 meters in Section 42B, separated by a single isolation valve. With practiced movements, he rerouted the flow to a set of secondary pipes before firing his sidearm at a specific junction. A torrent of supercooled liquid erupted, flash freezing the corridor where Vorlog's advancing troops were caught. The pursuing soldiers became macabre ice sculptures. "One down," Cade stated, his expression grim, yet tinged with grim satisfaction. 16 remaining. In another section, he disrupted the artificial gravity within a specific module. As Vorlog's forces stormed the vessel, they were suddenly adrift, disoriented, and exposed. Serafina's drones swiftly eliminated them with pinpoint accuracy. He explained that the gravity systems, damaged during the Battle of Arcturus, had only been crudely patched. Manual overrides had been installed, bypassing crucial safety protocols. He himself had authored the report detailing this. When heavily armored shock troops advanced toward the bridge, Cade lured them into a perceived dead end, then activated a hidden panel. "The Nemesis harbored a unique flaw," he transmitted to Serafina. The emergency bulkheads in sections 18 through 22 were installed in reverse, leaving a small gap at the bottom when deployed, insufficient for a person, but ideal for his purpose. He slipped a small canister through the opening just as the bulkhead sealed with a decisive clang. The muffled sounds of coughing, followed by an unnerving silence, told the grim tale. "Sleeping gas," he confirmed. "Standard issue, still potent after all these centuries." "How could you possibly know that would work after 300 years? Serafina questioned, as they secured the section behind them. "Because I wrote the report on that specific vulnerability, too," he responded with a chilling sense of vindication. "And the Admiral deemed it non-critical." Serafina seamlessly integrated with the ship's weapon systems, directing their limited firepower with surgical precision. However, the enemy numbers were overwhelming. Vorlog had deployed a vast army, and they were merely 2 souls against it. They were forced back, corridor by corridor, room by room, until they found themselves on the bridge, their last bastion. The doors sealed shut, their final line of defense. Through the viewports, Vorlog's flagship loomed in low orbit, a sleek, predatory silhouette against the starscape. Smaller craft, dropships, and fighters swarmed around it like a furious swarm of insects. "Their flagship is in low orbit," Serafina stated, her voice remarkably steady amidst the surrounding chaos. "If I direct all the phantoms towards it, I can destroy it." She stood at a console, her hands a blur as she interfaced with her hidden fleet. But the feedback, Cade realized, a terrible certainty dawning as he met her resolute gaze. "It will kill you." The neural interface that granted her command over the Phantom fleet was a perilous weapon, capable of irrevocably burning out her neural pathways with such intense exertion. "It is a worthy price," she replied, her focus unwavering. "My people will be avenged, and you will live." Cade watched, a knot tightening in his chest, as she prepared for her final gambit. The bridge doors shuddered under the relentless assault of Vorlog's troops. They had mere minutes, perhaps less. He looked at her, truly looked, and saw not just an ally, but a soul that had borne the crushing weight of her people's annihilation in solitary confinement for centuries. He saw someone who had shielded him, guided him, and ultimately saved him. And now, she was willing to sacrifice herself for a cause that had once been hers alone, but had now become theirs. In that profound moment, Elelenena's face materialized before his eyes, her smile, her voice, her final words, abruptly silenced by static. The memory of her demise, once a fiery catalyst for vengeance, now transmuted into something more profound. A stark reminder of loss, of sacrifice, and the devastating cost of war. He could not bear to lose another soul to this conflict, conceived in deceit. "No," he whispered, then louder. "No, you're not dying alone," he roared, breaking into a desperate sprint toward the emergency access hatch leading to the ship's lower decks. "Cade, what are you doing?" Serafina cried out, her voice laced with confusion and alarm. "It's my duty, Cade," she pleaded. "Let me end this." "No," he bellowed back, his voice resonating with unwavering conviction. "Your duty is to live. Mine is to give you that chance." He plunged into the Nemesis's service tunnels, memory his sole guide where light had long since failed. He knew the old reactor was critically unstable. After 3 centuries without maintenance, it was a miracle it hadn't already detonated. Now, that instability would become their salvation. He reached the reactor core, a colossal spherical chamber dominated by the pulsating heart of the ship's power system. Cooling rods, designed to avert catastrophic overload, hung suspended, engaged in a mesmerizing dance of controlled chaos. Cade approached the main control panel, initiating the overload protocol. Warning klaxons shrieked. The ship's automated voice, a distorted echo of its former self, announced the imminent reactor breach. Cade ignored it all, his focus absolute on the task at hand. The override codes, etched into his memory from his service aboard the Nemesis, resurfaced as if no time had passed. As he worked, his thoughts drifted to Elena, to his squadron, to all those who had perished in a war manufactured by avarice. He thought of Serafina, who had carried the crushing burden of her people's extinction for 3 centuries. He contemplated duty and honor, and how sometimes the highest duty lay in defying orders for the sake of what was unequivocally right. "Cade, no." Serafina's voice crackled through his helmet comm, understanding flooding her tone. The EMP blast from the reactor overload would obliterate all electronic systems across the planet, destroying the... Urgency seized Cade, not just for Serafina, but for her very essence, her Phantom fleet, the very technology that was both her power and her torment. He fled back through the echoing service tunnels, returning to the bridge where Serafina awaited. The doors were shattered. Vorlog's soldiers surged, weapons bared. Without pause, Cade seized Serafina's arm, pulling her towards an emergency exit. A battered, chemical-fueled buggy waited in the adjacent hangar bay, an antique, yet capable of surviving the EMP. "What have you done?" she cried, as he thrust her into the vehicle. "Given us a future," he answered, sliding in beside her and igniting the engine. The buggy coughed and sputtered, its ancient heart roaring to life before settling into a steady rumble. They rocketed from the hangar as the first tendrils of energy pulsed from the Nemesis's core. Behind them, Vorlog's troops grasped their peril too late, their cries silenced as the wave consumed them. Mere moments before the blast's zenith, their buggy launched, a solitary vessel arcing through the void between the Nemesis and the nearest derelict. They landed with a bone-jarring impact, but the buggy's sturdy frame held. Then, it happened. A colossal, silent wave rippled across Kerber 7. All technology died. Vessels, like colossal fallen birds, tumbled from the sky. Vorlog's flagship, caught in the wave, plummeted to the planet, a meteor of metal and fire. Serafina's helmet went dark, the neural link, woven into her being for centuries, her connection to her phantom fleet, to the technology that had defined her existence, was severed. In the profound stillness, punctuated only by the sigh of cooling metal and the distant thuds of descending ships, Cade reached to remove the now inert helmet. Instinctively, she raised her hands, shielding her face, as if terrified to reveal her vulnerability. For 300 years, the helmet had been her bulwark, her identity, her sole purpose. Stripped of it, who was she? Cade gently took her wrist, his tender resolve moving her hands away. His touch spoke volumes. Trust me, you are safe. You no longer need to hide. The helmet lifted, unveiling her, not to an adversary, nor a target, but to a companion who had glimpsed her soul. Beneath it lay the face of a young, weary woman. Tears welled in her eyes, not of sorrow, but of profound relief. She was free. The crushing weight of centuries as the last of her kind, the burden of vengeance, had finally lifted. "It's over," Cade murmured, his voice hushed in the newfound quiet of Kerber 7. Vorlog, Omni Orp, Omnigav, whatever they called themselves, they're gone. Serafina nodded, her hand rising to touch her face, to feel the air on her skin, unhindered by her helmet for the first time in living memory. "What do we do now?" she asked, the question resonating between them. "We survive," Cade replied, a faint smile gracing his lips. "We live." Weeks drifted by. They were the sole survivors on a world devoid of technology, yet they were doing more than merely enduring. They were forging something new. Their sanctuary began as a humble shelter within the hollow of a fallen cruiser, but it grew and adapted with each passing day. Cade's engineering prowess transformed salvaged components into vital systems, a water purification unit crafted from life support remnants, a compact forge fashioned from engine housing, capable of reshaping metal. Serafina contributed her own expertise. A small hydroponic garden flourished, cultivating edible algae and simple plants using techniques her people had perfected for interstellar voyages. Together, they cultivated a shared existence, a blend of human and Xeon heritage. They gathered by a fire, but this was no ordinary flame. It burned within a compact stove Cade had constructed from the reactor shielding of a scout vessel, its efficient design providing warmth with minimal fuel, bathing their shelter in a golden luminescence. Nearby, nestled within a container that once held ammunition for a silent weapon, a delicate luminescent blue flower bloomed, its petals seemingly holding captured light. Serafina tended it with gentle reverence. "I never thought I'd see one again," she whispered, her fingers brushing a petal. "They were abundant on my homeworld. This seed was in a preservation chamber within my helmet, a memory I carried through all these years." Cade watched her nurture the plant, a small miracle that had weathered 3 centuries of conflict. "What is it called?" he inquired. "In my tongue it means remembrance," she explained. "But perhaps now it signifies something else. Renewal, maybe." The graveyard of ships, once a stark testament to war, had become their canvas. They salvaged materials from the wrecks, learned to hunt the resilient creatures that had adapted to the ruins, and discovered ways to coax life from the metallic earth. They were not simply existing. They were creating a future from the shattered fragments of the past. Bathed in starlight, the sky blazed with an untarnished brilliance, light years beyond the reach of manufactured radiance. The 3-century conflict had genuinely ceased at long last. "So what comes next, Captain?" Serafina inquired, beholding his smile in its true form for the first time, not as a flattened image on a tactical screen. A smile blossomed upon her own face, mirroring his own burgeoning joy. Cade studied her, genuinely seeing the woman before him, illuminated by the soft glow of dying embers, recognizing her strength and her tenderness. The flower's azure luminescence painted delicate shadows across her face, accentuating the intricate silver lines that graced her cheekbones. He recognized in her not an adversary, not an alien being, but a kindred spirit, someone intimately familiar with the sting of loss, someone who had endured the horrors of combat, someone with whom he could potentially craft a shared destiny. The phantom of her former self had vanished, as had the soldier within him. They were merely two souls, a man and a woman, granted a precious new beginning on this world. "Now," he replied softly, extending his hand to clasp hers. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Cade didn't feel the icy emptiness of his reawakening, but rather a profound, comforting warmth blossoming within his heart. "We begin to truly live,"